Hello everyone, welcome to our tomato tasting video today. We actually have 7 varieties to share with everybody today, and we're going to walk through them and give them a ranking between 1 and 5 and get into what it actually tastes like and what we would use it for. So let's get started. So our first big tomato, this big guy right here, this one's called the Mortgage Lifter. It's a funny name for sure. I will see if it delivers on its flavor.
This is actually my favorite tomato. We grew it last year and I thought it had really nice flavor. It's also our biggest tomato we've ever grown. This particular tomato is just over a pound.
Very fleshy, lots of good insides. I think it's going to be very tasty, and I'm hoping it'll be a juicy one. So, take a bite. This is a nice tasting tomato. It is juicy, not the juiciest that we've had on our tomato tasting, but it's up there. I like the flavor. It has a lot of meat to it, as you may have saw in the video. Very tasty, very chewy, very low in the seeds, which is wonderful, and it's just like a nice all-around good natural tomato flavor.
I love it. It's my favorite tomato. It's really good tomato flavor, not too sweet, not too acidic, just perfect.
Now, if I were to give this tomato a ranking on it, I'd probably give it a 5. It's actually an excellent tomato in my books. I can see us using this for just eating it like a snack on a day-to-day basis, or chopping up and putting into a salad. It really does bring this tomato flavor. I think it's one of my favorite tomatoes we've grown so far. And like you mentioned, we grown this last year and we're very happy about it, and it still delivers each year. So yes, definitely, I rank this a number excellent, 5, and excellent.
Yeah, I agree. It's a 5. My favorite tomato. It's a slicer. It's good on sandwiches. It's good in salads. It's just a delicious tomato.
Wonderful. So this is really what we want. We're going to jump to our next tomato now. So this next tomato, it's called the Alaska tomato. A little bit bigger, not as big as the first one. So I have a feeling it's going to be just as juicy, if not more, but we'll take a good look at it. So let's take a dive in. So if you look on the inside, it's very meaty and very low seasoned. Looks like it's going to be a juicy one, so I'm looking forward to taking a bite of that.
So what I like about this tomato is that it's a semi-determinate tomato, so it has a sort of a bush growth pattern, so it doesn't need too much support as the indeterminate tomatoes do, like the Mortgage Lifter we just looked at before. It also grows really quickly in just 59 days, so it's a quick cropping tomato, which, you know, for those of us who are impatient to try the first tomato of the season, that's good news.
Very quick and very good. So this one I had a feeling, and it's a very meaty, very juicy tomato, almost as juicy as the previous one, but I think the Mortgage Lifter is a little bit more juice, which I do like, but this is still a really good tomato. In terms of the flavor, it's actually definitely a very robust tomato flavor. It's easy to chew. The juice explodes, and it just has a nice little flavor to it. I would definitely see us using this for sandwiches, for example, or again using it just a snack on a day-to-day basis, or throwing into salads. And if I was going to give this a ranking, this also falls up with the family of 5, which is an excellent flavored tomato, and I very much enjoy eating it.
I would agree, it's a 5. It's a little bit more acidic than the Mortgage Lifter, I find. It's also it's a slicer. It's a great tomato for sandwiches and for salads. It's good tomato flavor. Yeah, it's right up there. It's definitely a 5. Excellent tomato. I would grow it again.
So that was the Alaska tomato. Okay, our next tomato we have on here is a fairly commonly found tomato. You go to any grocery store, you're going to find this readily available. It is the Roma tomato. So again, another good looking big sized tomato. Yep, I'd say pretty close to what it looked like if you were going to get off the store shelf, but we grew this in our own garden. So
yeah, we've always had good success with the Roma tomatoes. It's a sauce variety, so it's mostly sort of used for sauces. because it's a little bit more dense than the slicers, but let's see what it tastes like.
What the inside looks like. Nice looking tomato. Again, looks like very meaty, very low seeds. So let's take a bite and see how it goes. So, as expected, it's actually very meaty. It does have a good juice kick to it. And it's just tasty overall. It has that really good robust tomato flavor, which I personally like. Now, I guess the question is it my favorite tomato? I think if I was going to give it a ranking, I'd probably give it a 4. It's good. Not as good as the previous 2 ones that we had, but it's good in its own right. And I can see us using it in sandwiches again, once again. Not a good sandwich tomato. Good for salads. And just good for a general snack. But what it has a little less is not as much juice coming out of it, but it's still tasty in my books. But I'm going to leave it at number 4.
Yeah, it's in a category of its own because it's not a slicer. It's used for sauces primarily. So as far as a snacking tomato goes, I definitely would prefer the first 2, Mortgage Lifter or Alaska. So I would give it a 4 if we're thinking of a snacking tomato. It's good, it's really tasty, but it probably serves its purpose better for sauces. Yeah, I would definitely grow it again over and over, but mostly use it for sauces. It's absolutely fine to use on sandwiches and in salads, but it definitely, I think, works much better in a sauce.
That was our Roma tomato. The next one we're going to be slicing up is the Washington Cherry. The inside of Washington Cherry looks like it's a bit smaller. It's definitely in the cherry tomato family. So I usually like cherry tomatoes, so we'll take a bite of this one and see how it plays out.
So this is also a quick growing tomato. It grows in about 60 days. And it's a round cherry tomato, so it's a little bit bigger than most cherries in size. So let's give it a try.
Yeah, it's bigger, and definitely when you bite into it, definitely has that cherry tomato vibe that I really like. So I like to have cherry tomatoes just for snacking. So I would say this is even better. This is probably a very good snacking tomato, the Washington Cherry. The juice content's there. Nice bite to it. It's not too. It's nice and sweet, not too sour. And yeah, like I said, these are primarily used for just individually snacking. You could slice them up and throw them into a salad, but I think if I was going to choose, I'd leave it more just like a day-to-day snacking tomato. And the ranking I would give it is an excellent. So for the cherry family, it is an excellent flavored tomato for me. Cause I like the kick you get when you bite into it. You really get that nice, really cherry flavor that I enjoy very much.
Yeah, and it differs from most cherries in that it's actually quite firm. It's a firm cherry. It's a little bit more on the meaty side. So it has a bite to it. It does have good flavor. So I would still give it a 4, just because it's a little bit too firm for my liking, but I can see how it can work really well for storing it and sort of packing it in snacks. You know, that's probably the best use for it. But I would absolutely grow it again. It's a good cherry tomato.
Alright, perfect. So we're going to jump into our next tomato now. It's a cute looking one. What's one's called the Sunrise Bumblebee. Very cute name and very cute coloring. So a little mix of a little red and yellow all together. Another cherry tomato. We're actually quite curious what it's going to come out and taste like. Yes. That's what the inside looks like. Nice and small. What you expect from a cherry tomato. Let's dive in and see what it tastes like. So, step number 1, try not to butcher your tomato just like I did when I was cutting it. little awkward cut there, but taking a bite of it, it's okay. I'm not really a fan this time. This tomato, I probably rank it lower. When I first bit into it, I got a very low juice flavor, not as much juice. It tastes almost, I would say, like dull, if I were to say so. It doesn't really have like that sweet kick that I enjoy, so it's more on the, I would say, the acidic side of it than really like the sweetness of it. The juice, you're not getting a lot of juice from that bite, and overall the flavor is just I'm not really a fan of it, so if I was going to give this a ranking, I'm going to consider it forgettable. 2, which is forgettable, which is you can eat it, but I'm not going to think much about it the next day because it just doesn't do it for me, and I'm just not a fan of it, unfortunately.
And I have to disagree with Devin. I actually quite like it. I think it actually tastes. It's a different taste. It's not your standard cherry tomato. It has. It's almost maybe like citrusy or there's something to it. There is a sweetness or tartness or something to it that I actually quite like. And I think because it tastes different, I would give it a 4. I like it. I think it's fun. I like the way it looks. I like the way it tastes. So for me, it's a good tasting tomato.
So that was the Sunrise Bumblebee. Fun name, forgettable flavor. Our next one we're going to dive into, it's called the Gold Nugget. Another cute name for a tomato.
And it's another determinate tomato, so it grows in a bush. So it doesn't need that much support, which I really appreciate. And it also quick growing tomato. It grows in about 55 days. It's our first year growing it, so it'll be interesting to see what we think.
So let's dive. It's very yellow, like the name entails. Let's take a bite and see if the flavor comes out. I like it. It has a nice little interesting bite into it. So when I first bit into it, I definitely got that cherry tomato flavor that I'm looking for. It's not as juicy, but this case it's actually not bad for me. It has the right amount of juice where I'll actually enjoy it. I can see this being used in like a salad or perhaps for someone who's maybe not used to getting such a strong tomato flavor. And the other interesting thing about it has this weird, it's unusual aftertaste. I can't really put my finger on it. It has you bite into it, you get the tomato, and as you're chewing the recipe, you get like a little interesting little kick at the end, which can't really describe what it tastes like, but I found it was good. And if I was going to give it a ranking myself, I actually can put this under the 3, which is okay, which I'd enjoy eating if I were to try it again in the future. It does have like that flavor I'm looking for. Again, the taste, it does have a little bit of sweetness, which is nice. It's not super juicy, so you're not dribbling juice all over your face. And it's not super sour either. Has a little sweet taste plus that unusual after kick flavor, which I still can't put my finger on, which I'm still recalling. But I do like this tomato, and I would definitely give it a 3 for sure.
Yeah, I actually like this tomato a lot. To me, it's an excellent cherry tomato. It's very well balanced between sweetness and acidity. I find it to be a little bit more on the sweet side. So I like it. I like it quite a bit. I will definitely grow it again. Absolutely a 5.
All right. Our final tomato for you, forgive me for butchering the name, but I'm going to give it a shot. It's called the Blondkopfchen Cherry.
So this is an heirloom tomato, Blondkopfchen Cherry. And this one is known for having lots and lots of clusters of sort of vine looking grape-like clusters really of flowers and tomatoes. So it's a really fun looking tomato, and we're very curious to try it out.
It has very small, has a nice little bright yellow flavor to it, and we'll take a bite and see what we think. So now this tomato, definitely it's a surprise to me if I were to say so. So biting into it, I initially got that nice, when I first bite, you get a nice little juice kick, which a little juice flies out, but it's not overwhelming. You definitely got that tomato flavor, which I do like for cherry tomatoes. It's definitely, I'd say it has a little bit of a sweet texture to it, and there's like another flavor mixed into. Again, it's almost like a weird, another additional kick to it that I actually find, much like the previous tomato I had. And I actually do like this, and it does have a little bit of juice in it, which is wonderful, but it's not overwhelming. And the texture is nice and easy to bite into, and I can see this being a tomato used again for either free snacking by yourself or throwing it into a salad for sure. I think if I was going to give this tomato a ranking, I'd definitely give it a 4, which is a good tomato. Like, I actually do like the flavor of it, and I could definitely see myself eating it in the future and enjoying it.
I would agree. I would give it a 4 as well. I think it's a really good snacking tomato. It's a little bit milder in flavor, but that's also good for a snacking tomato. You can almost sort of eat this as candy, and it's so tiny. So it's a really good snacking tomato. I think it would be great for folks who perhaps don't like tomatoes that much because it's not strong on the tomato flavor. It's a little bit more mild and balanced. So yeah, I'm quite liking this one.
Thank you all for watching our video today. Please leave a comment below on what tomatoes you like growing in your garden. Cheers!